do we not have Senator Blunt's? We are supposed to be getting Senator Blunt. We should also tell you, busy day here with the bombings in Syria and the Neil Gorsuch confirmation in Washington, D.C., closer to home. Josh Hawley, the Attorney General of Missouri, is going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour. He is the newly minted Attorney General, and this week, with all this MLS stadium stuff, we did not get a chance to talk about his new initiative to combat human trafficking. So we're going to check in with Josh Hawley a little bit later on in the 9 o'clock hour. Now we have secured Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, welcome back to KTRS here in St. Louis.
Hey, it's good to be with you.
So busy last 24 hours, President Trump using some military might to bomb Syria. What are your thoughts as you watch and see this?
Well, I think it's the right thing to do and the right response to the another atrocity. 6 years now of atrocities by the Assad regime. If you saw the picture of that father holding those dead twin babies, his wife already dead. If you read the reports of somebody who had lost 26 members of their family who just happened to live congregated in that neighborhood, but thousands of people have died just from atrocious circumstances, the barrel bombs, the chemical weapons that have been used now multiple times. And finally, the United States enforces the red line that we drew almost at the beginning of this, that President Obama drew almost 6 years ago. I think a very good signal to Russia, very good signal to Iran, and hopefully it's a good signal to North Korea on the very day that the president's meeting with the one country that should be able to do something about North Korea, if anybody could, short of actions that you wouldn't want to take as North Korea continues to build their nuclear capacity. So I think the fact that this happened, it happened quickly, it happened proportionally, means the president listens, the president learns, the president's willing to look at new circumstances in a new way, and I think it's a significant message for our friends and our adversaries around the world.
Do you think that anything else could be done or should be done in the near future?
Well, I've always thought more could and should be done, but I think at this moment the proportional response is probably important, that you take a response, you hit Assad where it hurts and where it has maximum cost, but you don't endanger civilians. You understand that the Russians are actually present at that base, but you give them enough notice that if they become victims themselves, it's largely their fault. I think it shows the president surrounded himself with a good, strong, knowledgeable national security team, and they acted quickly. I said this says a lot about the president. It also says a lot about McMaster's and Secretary Mattis and General Kelly at the Homeland as they become principal players in giving advice on national security.
Senator Blunt, let's move from the airstrikes in Syria to what many are calling a historic day in your chamber, the Senate chamber, doing away with the filibuster rules and nominating Neil Gorsuch on a majority vote to sit on the Supreme Court. As you watch this, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think what the Senate did yesterday was return the last group, the last 9 people of the 12 or 1,300 people the Senate has to confirm. Only 9 of them, as of 2013, took more than a majority vote. And until 2003, really nobody had ever taken more than a majority vote. There'd never been a filibuster, a partisan filibuster on a presidential nominee. They didn't all get confirmed and they all didn't get voted on, but when they did get voted on, that was always a majority vote. I think it's goes way too far to suggest that somehow this takes the 200-year tradition of having a extraordinary majority to pass legislation and puts that in danger just because the Senate yesterday went back to a 214-year tradition of this is how you confirm people. Since the Harry Reid Senate changed the rules in 2013 for every single appointee that was available to President Obama, Everybody has known, I think, that this would eventually happen when there was a Supreme Court vacancy. The only thing you didn't know was who was going to be in the White House and who was going to be the majority in the Senate. I think it's time to move on, and I suspect most of my colleagues know that. There aren't 10 of my colleagues who didn't know this was going to happen for 5 or 6 years now, and it did. I guess it'd be more like 4 years, back to 2013, and it did happen.
So when the shoe's on the other foot, Democrats are in the White House, Democrats have the majority of the Senate, and they only use 51 votes to confirm their Supreme Court justice. I guess that's just the way the game's played now?
Well, it's the way it's always been played. There has never been a filibuster of a Supreme Court justice, ever. Clarence Thomas was approved 52 to 48. That was unbelievably controversial, and nobody even thought that it was appropriate to ask for the 60-vote vote to have the majority vote. Judge Alito, I think, got 58 votes. So the idea that there's some new standard here is just not true, and this is the way judges have always. There's never been a partisan filibuster on a Supreme Court judge in the history of the country. So suggesting somehow eliminating the potential for that dramatically changes the way judges have always been confirmed. You know, Kagan and Sotomayor didn't have a 60-vote vote request because Republicans said we don't do that. Jeff Sessions, who was the leading Republican on the Judiciary Committee at the Kagan nomination, Harry Reid was ready to file a cloture vote because they had 60 votes. And Jeff Sessions says, you don't need to file that. We've never filed that. We've never asked for that. We won't ask for that today. And so I think we're really, in terms of nominees, back to where if you nominate somebody for your cabinet or you nominate somebody to go on the court, that goes back. That's confirmed the way now it's always been confirmed.
Senator Blunt, your counterpart, Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, voted to filibuster this nomination. Many people calling her, being critical of her for not being a statesman in this situation. What are your thoughts on Senator McCaskill calling for that filibuster?
Well, I think Senator McCaskill's view was that she was opposed to Judge Gorsuch, and she voted no on Judge Gorsuch. And in effect, she had two opportunities to vote no, and she did. Again, I don't think anybody was surprised that the outcome of this would be that we would take these last 9 appointed positions, once one of them was available, and say, okay, we're going to treat these the way that the Senate decided in 2013. On a partisan basis that Senator McCaskill voted for and I voted against. The Senate decided in 2013 that about 1,300 people would be confirmed the way Judge Gorsuch was confirmed yesterday. And the fact is there was no Supreme Court vacancy. So the Senate had at a previous time decided that every vacancy that was possibly available to President Obama would be filled by a simple majority. And everybody knew that eventually this would happen when there was a Supreme Court vacancy as well, and it did.
Let's end on a good note. You just got the Senate to pass a Hire Vets Act. What's that all about?
Well, we did. We got a Hire Vets Act, and then Senator McCaskill and I got a bill passed the other day that particularly is important to Jefferson County for the Delta Queen, which I think is going to be headquartered at Kimmswick. But the Hire Vets Act establishes a standard, much like the LEED standard on how you are on energy efficiency. This will establish a standard if you want to participate as an employer of how you are on hiring vets, how you are on searching for vets, how you are on giving vets credit for the skills they learned in the military, how your company reacts to finding a place for veterans, and I hope that's something that lots of employers want to be part of, and glad to see that one of the first bills likely to be signed by the president.
I've never understood why it is so hard for businesses to understand that hiring a vet is a good thing and that they bring a lot of skills to the table that many of us don't have.
Well, exactly right, and it's another way to reward those who are willing to serve as our veterans do, and I'm glad that bill is out of the Senate, and look forward to it being on the president's desk.
Senator Blunt, safe travels. You're always welcome here. Have a good day.
Great to talk to you. See you soon.
You got it. 729, Big 550, KTR.